Tony Dungy, the Hall of Famer, former NFL head coach of the Colts and the Buccaneers, and of course, Football Night in America contributor and a Detroit Lions fan. Tone, you have reason to root for the Lions this year. Are you on the bandwagon?
Finally, a little hope, Dan. I see some defense starting to come around. The offense was playing great early in the year, but I was wondering if we could stop anybody. Aaron Glenn's got that unit playing better and better. Aiden Hutchinson making some big plays. So I think there is a little room for hope.
Okay, you said we. If
Yeah,
if the Lions played the Colts.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm probably rooting for the Colts because I work for them and I have people. They paid my paycheck. The Lions never paid my paycheck.
The Lions. Well, weren't you up for the Lions job, or did you consider coaching the Lions years ago?
Martin Mayhew was doing a coaching search. He was the GM. Martin had played for me in Tampa, and he's asking me about Jim Caldwell. And he said, before we get started, I have to ask the obligatory question. And because of my roots and growing up there, my dad being such a Lions fan, I actually told Martin I would think about it for 24 hours before I said no. But I thought about it for 24 hours and said no.
But this is where you talk to your wife and you have to bring
No, it really didn't even go that
okay.
far. I told Martin if my dad was still alive, I probably would have done it because of his love for the Lions and all my roots. But at that point, I was done coaching.
All right, help me understand this with roughing the passer. The number of roughing the passer calls are down significantly, 37%. But anger is up because we're not quite sure if you're a defensive player. How do you sack somebody now? And we never thought that we would get to this point. How did we get to this point?
We got to this point because we want to protect the quarterbacks and the investment in the game, and we all understand that. And so you're trying to create rules and trying to create a black and white where it can't be black and white. It's got to be one of those things where you know it when you see it. I remember when they first put in the rule, if you hit the quarterback in the head, it's roughing the pass. And so we had a couple guys trying to block passes, and they just touched the head. And we got penalties. So John Turlink was our defensive line coach. He comes in to me and says, we are never trying to block another pass. We're going right at the midsection. We're laying out. We're taking one step. We're hitting these guys right in the midsection. And then people get upset about that because, oh, you hit them with your full body weight. So now you can't try to block a pass. You can't hit them in the knee. You can't put your whole body weight. You know when somebody is drilling the quarterback and taking an extra shot, that's what the officials should call. When the linebacker from Miami, has both hands in the air and barely touches the guy, you can't call that roughing the passer. You just can't. And that's what people are angry about.
But how about if we have it where it's reviewable, but you have only a certain number? No, you don't like that. No.
Reviews don't work. We saw that with pass interference. And we're sitting there and they're reviewing it. And you're saying, as Mike Holmgren would say, 50 drunks in a bar would say, this is not pass interference. And they would say, the call stands. So, it's just, I don't think reviews are the key. I think it's just educating these officials. You know what roughing the passer is. When a guy is taking an extra shot, when he's taking two steps, when he pushes them down unnecessarily, when he really does drive him into the turf, not just fall on him, but drive him into the turf. We know what roughing the passer is. Just call it.
But did you ever feel like an official, even though he knew he was wrong, was not going to change it because ego gets involved?
Well, and that's where part of our problem is. If we would come on Monday at these NFL press conferences and say, you know what, that call in the Chargers game, it wasn't roughing the passer. We made a mistake. Everybody could live with that because everybody does make mistakes. But when you say, no, Calvin Johnson really didn't catch the ball, and then, everybody and their mother says, no, he caught it. He took two steps. He put his hands down on the ground. He got up to celebrate and he dropped the ball. That was a touchdown. Detroit should have won the game. But when you say, well, no, it really wasn't a catch, and then you start having to make rules because you want to justify that. Yeah. And then the next catch, so that's what happens. And we're getting that with roughing the passers. We're getting that with taking the helmet off. The Saints lose, or not the Saints, but the Panthers lose a game because the guy's celebrating in the stands with the fans. and we throw a flag. And just instead of saying we were wrong, that we don't want that called, we try to justify it. Now, when the next guy takes his helmet off, we don't call it. We do call it. That's where people get upset.
Talking to Tony Dungy, the Hall of Famer. Scoring is down. The games are closer, but scoring is down. And I want to give credit to the defense. You know, the Niners have a great defense. Dallas has, a formidable defense. And I don't know if it's philosophy, Tony, and it felt like it started with the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to make you dink and dunk and not let you beat us with a big play. Yeah. And I don't know if other teams are kind of subscribing to that.
People are adopting that. They are, trying to take away the big play. They're drafting defenders. I never thought we'd see cornerbacks drafted in the top 4, but Sauce Gardner, is a factor. And people are saying, I want that. So there is an emphasis on defense. But Dan, I think the big thing is lack of practice time and lack of working together. I just think we've cut down on practices. We've cut down on what you can do. And this hurts the offenses.
Well, I also go back to Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers was upset with those young receivers. I was upset with Aaron Rodgers being upset with them because he already knows how to play the game. They don't. And I thought that was a real missed opportunity for Green Bay, that he would be with those young receivers.
You are so right. My last year coaching, 2008, we draft Anthony Gonzalez, number 1 from Ohio State, wide receiver. He can't come because Ohio State has the long, they're in school in May until June. Peyton Manning, at that point, had already won a Super Bowl. He'd won 3 MVPs. Peyton Manning got in his car twice a week, drove from Indianapolis to Columbus, Ohio, took the playbook with him, went over the playbook for an hour with Anthony Gonzalez, threw routes at their facility for an hour, and drove back 8 hours a day on his own. We never asked him to do that. Twice a week on his own to help Anthony Gonzalez get ready. So when Aaron Rodgers says, oh, we've got these young receivers and they aren't ready, but by the way, I wasn't there during the summer. You can't, I don't buy that.
The NBA came out with awards and they named them after players. The MVP award is Michael Jordan, even though Kareem has one more MVP than Mike does. But I was wondering if we did this with the NFL. How do you think Peyton would take this if I said the regular season MVP is the Peyton Manning Award, the Super Bowl MVP is the Tom Brady Award?
I think that would make sense. You look at how many MVPs Peyton has won. You look at how many MVPs the Super Bowls Brady has won. I think that would make sense. I do think we have a recency bias when we talk that way. You might want to go back to the Otto Graham Award or the Jim Brown Award or the Sammy Ball Award. We don't realize how great some of those guys were. But I could see what you're saying. I could go with that.
Yeah, but I love that we don't forget those who played before, because there is the recency bias. People don't remember Johnny Unitas and what he meant to that position. Like, he was the first modern day quarterback with what he did, the 2-minute drill. I mean, and we forget.
Peyton modeled his game after Unitas, and he was a throwback to that era. I can remember my dad, the first game I ever went to in Detroit, my dad took me to a Lions-Browns preseason game because he wanted me to see Jim Brown. And that was my dad's era. And he wanted me to know that was greatness.
Well, I try to tell people about Jim Brown, and I still don't know how to describe what he did, how he did it, when he did it, and that he got so bored that he went into acting. He just said, is there any other challenges here? Nope. I'm going to be an actor here after 9 seasons.
My coach, Chuck Noll, was a man of few words, but I rarely saw him speechless. He blocked for Jim Brown. When I asked him about Jim Brown, he couldn't even describe it. He said he was so far ahead of his time and so skilled and so good. He didn't want to downplay his own role, but he said he really didn't need blockers.
I didn't know Chuck Noll blocked for Jim Brown.
He was the alternating messenger guard for Paul Brown. Yes. Yep.
What are the Cowboys getting with T.Y. Hilton?
I think they're getting a guy who can be explosive and can make some plays. They've got a great receiving core. CD Lamb is going to get all the attention, and they've got Gallup and they've got tight ends. So now when you bring T.Y. Hilton in as the third receiver, maybe the fourth receiver and a four wide receiver set, well, he's going to get single coverage. And this is still a guy who has speed and quickness and can beat single coverage. And I would see him doing some damage here down the stretch.
But it feels like Jerry Jones has had his eye on OBJ, and somehow, some way, he's going to bring him in. I don't know when he can play, but it feels like Jerry Jones is committed to OBJ.
I think they're going to get OBJ. My guess is it will probably be next year, because if you were going to get him this year and he was going to do something for you in the playoffs, I don't think you would have signed T.Y. Hilton. You don't need that with all the other receivers you have. I think Jerry is infatuated with big names. He saw what OBJ did down the stretch for the Rams.
Yeah.
I don't know if Odell is ready to go and he can play at that level yet. I don't think anybody knows, but I think Jerry Jones would like to see that. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
We might have snow in Buffalo with the Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Now, you coached in Indianapolis and you coached in Tampa, so you weren't around the elements unless you went on the road. What was your philosophy in telling your players, well, certainly in Tampa, when you'd be on the road and cold weather, what did you say?
Well, Indianapolis, we could deal with it because we just would practice outdoors. We're playing on the road this week in Buffalo. We're going to practice outdoors. We've got the same elements, and we'd get ready for it. In Tampa, there's no way you can get ready for it. So you have to I took the Bud Grant approach. And Mike McDaniel is trying to do that. You know, it's mental. Bud Grant used to say that heat was physical, cold is mental. And that's the way, no, and it's true. It's true. And he would tell a story every year when the weather would turn cold about working on the Alaskan pipeline when he was a student at the University of Minnesota. And they had an Eskimo who was fixing the tractors. And the guys who came up from Minnesota could only be out there 15-minute shifts, and then it was too cold. Well, the tractor broke. The Eskimo came and fixed it, and he's out there an hour and a half, right? Yeah, I think I got it ready. And they're like, how can you be out there an hour and a half? We can only be out there 15 minutes. He said, I'm not trying to stay warm. I'm trying to fix the tractor. You're staying warm. So as soon as you get cold, you come in. And so Bud said, we're trying to fix the tractor. We're not trying to stay warm. And he would get the guys like Sammy White from Grambling and Rashad, and they'd go out there with no gloves and no sleeves and play. And we're not trying to stay warm. So it is a little bit mental, but when you can't practice in it, you can't walk around in it, it's a shock to your system when you go out there on that field.
We're just trying to fix the tractor. I'll leave you with this. Are the Niners good enough defensively to go to the Super Bowl just with that defense?
They are. That defense is very good. They can run the football. Brock Purdy has surprised me the last 2 weeks. He's throwing the ball well. But even if he doesn't, if he is just okay or slightly below average, the way they can run and the way they can play defense, John Lynch was on the Super Bowl team in Tampa. John Lynch was on our 99 team that went right to the championship game with that formula of playing defense and running the ball. And I know that's what they've sold, and I believe they can do it. I believe they can do it.
Always great to talk to you. My best to Lauren and the kids over the holidays. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, DP. Always great to be on with you.
That's the Hall of Famer, Tony Dungy. We're just trying to fix the tractor, Paulie. That's all we're doing.